Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent and I'm an artist based out of San Francisco. And in this video, I want to talk about how you can start selling your art online. Now, if you've never sold your art before, it can feel really daunting to take the first step. I remember personally, I was really nervous before I started selling my art. And there seem to be so many different options. There are all these platforms online, there are all these different ways that you can sell your art. Maybe you have some questions about shipping and pricing or regulatory questions. And all these things can be really intimidating when you're just getting started. But I think if you're out to make a sustainable art business, selling your art online is a great way to start doing that. It's how I started growing my own art business, and I promise you, it's a lot less scary than it seems. So in this video, I'm going to share a little bit about my experience and give you my favorite tips for selling your art online. So I think one of the biggest questions is, how do you start? And if you're a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist like me, I think you can fall into the common pitfall, which is thinking that you need to have the perfect art website, the perfect platform set up before you start selling your art. But that's just not true. My tip for this is start simple, start small, and don't try to make it perfect. Expect that you'll make some mistakes along the way, and that's totally fine. One of the great things about starting small is that if you do make mistakes, those mistakes will probably be small too. And as your store starts to grow, as your sales increase, you'll learn more, you'll get better, and you'll learn to sort of anticipate some of these problems in the future. Plus, if you wait till everything's perfect, until you know absolutely everything, then you're never gonna start. So how did I start? Well, I started out without even a website or a shop or anything like that. All I had was my Instagram account. I don't remember how many followers I had on Instagram. I think it was less than 1,000, so not nothing, but definitely not a huge following. And all I did was I had about 10 paintings that I was interested in selling, and I just made a post that showcased those 10 paintings and asked people to DM me if they were interested in buying them. I think you really can't be more simple than that. Basically, all you have to do is take some pictures of the artwork, post to Instagram, and then see what people say. And I didn't even have any fancy payment system set up. I just accepted kind of whatever people offered, whether it was Venmo or cash or PayPal, things like that. Like I said, I kept it really simple. But in this sale, I sold a few paintings, and that gave me the confidence to take the next step. And although Instagram has its pros and cons, I think it can still be a great way for you to start selling your work, whether it's through making a post where you advertise what's available, or even through just sharing to your stories and asking people to reach out if they're interested. This is a great first step in selling your work. Okay, so now maybe you sold a few paintings through Instagram, but you're looking to get more official. So now what do? So for me, after my first Instagram sale, I decided to open an Etsy shop. And there are a few reasons why I chose to work with Etsy rather than just doing my own website. I found opening an Etsy shop to be really, really simple. I actually already had a website for my art, but it didn't really have an e-commerce or shop side, and I knew I would have to create a whole template and kind of build that shop on my own. So having Etsy's sort of pre-made shop marketplace setup was really appealing to me. I also really liked how Etsy handled all of the e-commerce things, how it handled the payments. It was kind of a trusted marketplace where I felt like as someone who had bought products on Etsy, I felt like it was a really legitimate marketplace, and I liked the sellers who were on there. I felt protected as a seller if anything went wrong, which thankfully I have never had an issue with any of my orders on Etsy. But I do feel like it's nice to have sort of a third party that is handling a lot of the payments. And I also liked how they did things like calculating sales tax for me, generating tariff codes if I was shipping internationally, and also they gave some slight discounts on the shipping, like on the cost of stamps and stuff for the packages that I was shipping out. And the other thing I really liked about Etsy was that it connected me to this online marketplace. So I knew that people who were going to Etsy were going because they were looking to buy something. And if they were searching for fine art, they were specifically looking to buy fine art. Compared to Instagram, I think a lot of people are going on Instagram to just browse, to look at things. They're not necessarily looking to buy. And I think this can be super beneficial if you are an artist, especially with a small following on social media. I think being on Etsy can help connect you to a market and potentially get more exposure for your products. And I think there are a lot of online marketplaces out there. I know Etsy is not the only one. It's just the one that I'm most familiar with and that I use myself. So overall, I think Etsy's great. There are a few cons, like I do think it is more craft focused than fine art focused. It also, all of the shops kind of have the similar look, so you can't really do your own branding. And then they do take a fee. I don't remember exactly what the fee was. It's kind of a modest fee. It wasn't anything crazy, but they do take a fee. And for all those reasons, I eventually shifted over to my own e-commerce website. But that was only after maybe 2 years of being on Etsy. So I still think that if you're just getting started selling your art online, Etsy is a great option. Etsy or a similar marketplace can be a really good option for you to get started. Okay, so now another big question that can be very anxiety inducing is how do you set prices? And I think there's no perfect method for this, and art can be very difficult to price. And one thing that I also want to say is just don't tie your value to the prices that your art sells for. Okay, the prices are something determined by the market. They're not a reflection of. Don't take it personally, you know. I've seen great art that sold for very cheap and art that I was not a big fan of that sold for a lot of money. So I think, yeah, just don't take the price of the art personally, and know also that the art market has all these fluctuations and stuff that have nothing to do with you, but have more to do with the overall economy. But with that being said, I think, yeah, there's no set method for pricing your art, especially when you haven't sold any art already. And this is more geared towards if you're selling your art online, because if you're working with a gallery, the gallery can give you recommendations on what to sell your art for. But if you're selling your art online, you might not have a good basis for how much how you should price your art. So everyone's case is different, but I can tell you what I did, and maybe that'll be helpful for you. So in my case, especially at that time, I was doing a lot of daily paintings. So I had a very large inventory of paintings, and I was more focused on finding homes for those paintings rather than holding on to them for a long time until they necessarily found the right buyer. So for me, I was happy to sell the paintings at a lower price if that meant that they sold faster. I really wanted to generate sales and kind of get my business off the ground, and so I decided I would sort of aim on the low end of prices, knowing that I could probably increase my prices in the future. When I started my Instagram sale, what I did actually was I went onto Etsy and I looked for artists who were kind of painting in a similar style and whose work looked a bit similar to mine. And then I priced my work at the low end of those prices. This was extremely low, especially given the fact that I live in a high cost of living area in San Francisco, and a lot of Etsy sellers may live in areas that are much cheaper than where I live. So for me, I knew it wasn't a sustainable price to keep selling my work at that rate, but it was a good start. I was able to generate a lot of sales, and then gradually over time, I could increase my prices. Another thing to be sure to factor in is that if you're on a site like Etsy, they usually encourage you to offer free shipping, so just make sure to take that into account when you're pricing your artwork, and also of course take into account whether or not you're going to be adding a frame to the work and factor in that price as well. So my general recommendation, if you want to sell your work and start selling quickly, is to start on this lower end and then gradually raise your prices. And then the last thing about selling your art online is the finances. If you're making income from your art for the first time, then you're going to need to check your country's regulations around self-employment income and around how you're going to pay taxes on that income. Also, in places like the US, we have sales tax, or maybe you have value-added tax, so you'll need to consider that too. For me, I think this part might have been one of the most intimidating things because I knew absolutely nothing about self-employment taxes or how to do that. I just expected to be working a regular job my whole life, so I didn't think that I'd have to learn this stuff. But thankfully, there are a lot of educational resources if you're running your own business and if you're self-employed. One of my favorite resources for filing taxes for self-employed people, especially if you're an artist, is the Sunlight Tax Money Bootcamp program. This is the program that I took when I was filing my taxes as a self-employed person for the first time, and it was just a huge help. The program is filled with just a wealth of information, and I highly recommend it to any artist who's starting a business. I used to be filled with anxiety when taxes came around, but now I actually feel totally calm and collected because I know I've got everything under control. If you want to feel stress-free when you're filing your taxes, then be sure to check out the link for Money Bootcamp below. This is an affiliate link, so I get a benefit if you sign up, and you also get $100 off the cost of Money Bootcamp. Okay, so let's do a recap. How do you start selling your art online? First, start small. It can be as easy as just posting a few pieces to Instagram or opening up a small Etsy shop. For setting prices, I recommend looking at other artists who are similar to you and see how they're setting the prices for their work. If you notice that your work is selling out really quickly, you can start raising your prices. And lastly, be sure to get your finances in order so you don't have a huge tax headache at the end of the year. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope this helped give you some confidence and show you that it's not too hard to start selling your work online. Let me know in the comments if you have any follow-up questions or if there's a topic that you'd like me to discuss in future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.